See, respect isn't something you ask for. It's something you command, without saying a word. And the first way you do that is you stop explaining yourself. Stop justifying why you are the way you are. You don't owe anyone a PowerPoint presentation of your worth. You stop explaining yourself. Because the moment you do, you're already playing defense. And people who don't respect you, they thrive when you're on your heels. You say something, they question it. You take a step, they challenge it. And suddenly, you're in this spiral, trying to justify your choices, your words, your presence. But here's the true thing: people who respect you don't need an explanation. And the ones who don't, they're not listening to understand anyway. They're listening to find weakness. So what do? You let them talk. You let them assume. You let them misjudge. And you stay focused. Because every time you explain yourself to someone who's already decided not to see you, you give away a piece of your power. And power isn't loud beg, it doesn't plead. Real power, it stands, it watches. It chooses when and if to speak. So instead of proving yourself to someone who disrespects you, prove to yourself that you don't need their validation. You already know who you are. And when you know who you are, they can't touch you. You elevate. You don't engage. Because the moment you react on their level, you give them what they came for. Your control. And people who don't respect you, they feed on that. They don't want resolution. They want a scene. They want to provoke you, pull you in, make you question yourself. Why? Because if they can get at you to lose your cool, they get to rewrite the narrative. Now you're the emotional one. Now you're the problem. And just like that, the focus shifts away from their behavior to your reaction. So what do? You don't stoop, you rise. You stay calm when they expect rage. You stay centered when they expect chaos. That doesn't mean you let it slide. That doesn't mean you smile and take it. It means you respond from a place of strength, not insecurity. You say what needs to be said, but without ever letting them touch your center. This is about emotional discipline. It's not weakness to stay composed. It's not silence that makes you small. It's silence that makes them wonder. Because when you don't give them the reaction they expected, you throw them off balance. You shift the dynamic. You become the one in control. They may raise their voice. They may get sarcastic, rude, passive-aggressive. But you stay grounded. You don't match energy. You set the tone. That's what real power looks like. It's measured. It's intentional. And it's untouchable. You remove access. Not to be petty. Not to be dramatic. But because access is earned, not owed. See, we live in a world where people think they can say whatever they want, act however they want, and still stay in your life like nothing happened. They disrespect you, and they expect you to stick around. Why? Because you always have. Because you've let things slide. Because you've stayed loyal to people who were never loyal to your dignity. But here's the true thing. Just because someone's been in your life a long time doesn't mean they belong in your life forever. Time doesn't equal respect. Proximity doesn't equal value. And when someone shows you repeatedly that they have no regard for your boundaries, your worth, or your voice, you believe them. The first time it's a mistake. The second time it's a choice. The third time, it's a pattern. And patterns don't change until you interrupt them. You don't owe anyone a front row seat to your growth if all they do is throw stones at your process. You don't need to explain your distance, your silence, or your absence. You don't need permission to protect your peace. When someone treats you like you're replaceable, act accordingly, so you step back. Not because you're angry, but because you're done handing out VIP passes to people who show up like spectators. You stop watering dead plants. You stop fighting to be seen in places where you've always been invisible. You remove access. And you do it with grace, not guilt. Because when you finally stop chasing people who don't respect you, you make room for the ones who do. You focus on the mission, not the noise. Because disrespect is just that. Noise. It's static meant to pull your attention away from what actually matters. And if you're not careful, you'll spend so much time trying to silence the noise that you forget why you even started. That's the trap. The moment they see they can shake you, they'll keep pressing. A snide comment here, a condescending look there. It's all bait, and every time you take it, you step off your path and onto theirs. But you didn't come this far to let small minds sabotage a big mission. You're here for something greater. And every second you waste arguing with someone who doesn't respect you is a second stolen from your purpose. They want you reactive. They want you explaining yourself. They want you doubting your steps. Because if they can't reach your level, they'll try to bring you down to theirs. So what do? You don't bite. You don't shrink. You don't even flinch. You lock in. Tunnel vision, discipline, precision. You remind yourself, I don't respond to noise. I respond to strategy. And strategy means you don't fight every battle. Some things, not worth your breath. Because people who have time to disrespect you, to gossip, to poke at your confidence, they're already behind. They've already lost focus on their own lives. And when you engage, you give them power they didn't earn. See, staying mission-focused isn't about ignoring the disrespect. It's about outgrowing it. It's about showing them, and yourself, that your purpose is bigger than their opinion. That their words, no matter how loud, can't touch a soul that's grounded in direction. You let your results talk. You let your work speak. You let your progress be the loudest response in the room. Because here's the truth, nothing exposes a disrespectful person faster than your success. Nothing silences them quicker than your consistency. And nothing threatens them more than your refusal to break character. While they're trying to distract you, you're still building. While they're criticizing, you're still creating. While they're loud, you're locked in. That's the difference between them and you. You don't need the last word. You don't need to prove them wrong. You just need to keep going. Because when you're focused on your mission, your energy shifts. You stop chasing validation. You stop answering every critic. You realize that not everyone deserves a response, not every challenge deserves your time, and not every act of disrespect needs to be confronted. Sometimes, the best way to handle someone who doesn't respect you is to win, quietly, consistently, without ever looking back. And that is untouchable. You protect your energy like currency, because it is. Every time you engage with someone who disrespects you, you spend it. Every time you replay that conversation in your head, wonder if you should have said more, done more, you spend it. And before you know it, you're drained, not from what they did, but from what you let linger. That's the part most people miss. Disrespect doesn't just come from what's said. It comes from what you continue to allow. Energy is expensive. Focus is expensive. Peace, that's luxury level. And when you treat your attention like it's unlimited, people will waste it like it costs nothing. But once you realize how valuable it truly is, you become selective, intentional, sharp. You start asking, does this person add to me or subtract from me? Do I feel seen around them or small? Because that answer, that tells you everything. And listen, this isn't about being cold. It's not about building walls. It's about managing access to your energy with the same precision a warrior manages their weapons. You don't hand over your fire to people who burn it for sport. You don't light up rooms for people who dim you in return. You stop showing up fully for people who only show up halfway. Every room you enter, every call you take, every text you answer, that's energy. Every time you choose to stay in a conversation that disrespects your intelligence, your values, your time, that's energy you never get back. So ask yourself, is interaction building me or bleeding me? People who don't respect you will always demand more than they give. That's their game. They take your attention, your emotion, your clarity, and give back doubt, frustration, and exhaustion. And the more you tolerate it, the more they think it's normal. You teach them what your silence is worth. You teach them how much of your light you'll trade for their shadow. But the moment you stop giving without return, the moment you say enough, everything shifts. You stop showing up to arguments that don't serve you. You stop fighting for space in places that don't value your voice. You stop letting people rent space in your head for free. And when you do that, you reclaim your energy, you preserve it, you invest it where it matters, into your mission, your peace, your growth. Because the people who truly respect you, they protect your energy. They don't drain it. They don't demand your emotional labor just to feel powerful. They match you. They fuel you. So you guard your energy like it's your survival. Because in many ways it is. You stay mission-focused, but that means you also lead with self-respect first. Because people will treat you how you treat you. If you minimize yourself, they will too. If you tolerate being talked over, dismissed, disregarded, they'll take it as permission. But when you carry yourself with self-respect, real, grounded, unshakable self-respect, you don't have to say a word. People feel it. And no, I'm not talking about arrogance. I'm not talking about walking into a room like you own it. I'm talking about walking into a room like you belong in it. That subtle, quiet confidence that says, I know who I am, I know what I bring, and I'm not here to prove it. You'll see it. Self-respect is a standard. It's how you dress, how you speak, how you handle yourself when no one's watching. It's how you carry yourself when someone disrespects you, especially then, because anyone can be composed when they're celebrated. It takes something deeper to stay composed when you're challenged. That's where the real work happens. So when someone cuts you off mid-sentence, do you shrink, or do you reclaim your space with calm authority? When someone mocks you in front of others, do you laugh along to blend in, or do you make it clear, with one look, that you're not here to be anyone's punchline? Every moment is a decision. Every decision reinforces your standard. And over time, people learn they cannot treat you casually, not because you're loud, not because you demand it, but because your self-respect sets a tone that others have to rise to, or walk away from. And here's the thing, when you truly respect yourself, you stop negotiating with disrespect. You don't second-guess whether you're overreacting. You don't ask, was that really that bad? No. You know, because the person you've become, the one who has built inner discipline, who's done the work, who's fought to get to this point, you protect that version of you like your life depends on it, because it does. This isn't about ego. It's about integrity. It's about keeping your standards high even when you're tired, even when you're hurt, even when no one's clapping for you. You treat yourself with that kind of respect, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. When you lead with self-respect first, you become a mirror. You show people exactly how to treat you. You won't need to correct them. They'll either adjust or disappear. And either way, you win. You stop chasing validation. Because when you know your worth, you don't beg people to see it. You don't contort yourself to fit their comfort zone. You don't dim your lights so they feel brighter. People who don't respect you, they feed on your need for approval. That's their leverage. That's how they control the room without ever raising their voice. They withhold acknowledgement. They ignore your input. They make you feel like you're always one step away from being accepted. If you just work harder, speak softer, stay smaller, and if you're not careful, you'll fall for it. You'll start performing, over-explaining, over-giving. You'll bend so far just to be seen that you forget how to stand straight. But here's the truth. You were never meant to be tolerated. You were meant to be respected. And if they can't do that without you begging for it, they don't deserve proximity to you. You don't need everyone to clap for you. You just need to clap for yourself first. Because when you operate from self-validation, you become immovable. You don't flinch when someone tries to downplay you. You don't shrink when you're ignored. You don't seek your value in their reaction. You carry it with you like armor. And that's what makes people uncomfortable. Your presence says, I don't need your permission to exist fully here. That's what confidence looks like. Not being the loudest in the room, but knowing you don't have to compete in it. You speak because you have something to say, not because you need to be liked. You walk away because your peace matters, not because you're being petty. When you're not dependent on external validation, disrespect loses its power. It doesn't sting the same way, because you're not there to win them over. You're there to win yourself back. And that kind of freedom, that rattles people, especially those who counted on your insecurity to control you. So you stop chasing validation, you stop asking for a seat, you build your own damn table, and then you watch who suddenly wants to sit down. You don't lower your standards, ever, because the second you do, you send a message, not just to them, but to yourself. You're saying, my boundaries are flexible, my worth is negotiable, my values can be bent if you push hard enough. And people who don't respect you, they are always testing for weakness. They're watching, not what you say, but what you allow. And the moment they see you fold to keep the peace, they take it as a green light to cross the line again. See, here's the thing about standards. They're not about controlling others. They're about protecting you, your peace, your purpose, your progress. When you say, "I don't allow people to speak to me that way," that's not arrogance, it's self-respect. When you say, "This is what I need in a relationship," that's not being difficult, that's being clear. But if you bend every time someone pushes back, you teach them that your limits are soft, that you can be worn down, that your respect for yourself ends where their discomfort begins. That's not strength. That's surrender. And I get it, it's hard. Holding your standard in the face of disrespect takes real courage. It's uncomfortable. It can make you feel isolated. You might even start to question yourself. Am I being too rigid? Too sensitive? Too much? No, you're being awake. You're refusing to normalize behavior that chips away at your dignity just so someone else can feel powerful. And guess what? The people who truly value you, they won't be threatened by your standards. They'll rise to them. Because the right people aren't intimidated by strength. They're inspired by it. It calls something better out of them. And the wrong people, they'll either fight it or flee from it. And either way, that's your answer. So you stop apologizing for having expectations. You stop over-explaining your boundaries. You stop softening your tone just to be palatable. Because your standards aren't for decoration, they're for protection. They're the filter that separates who gets to walk beside you and who only gets to wave from a distance. And let's be clear, this applies to every space. Professionally, personally, emotionally. You don't accept being underpaid, underappreciated, or overlooked. Not because you're entitled, but because you've earned more. You don't tolerate disrespect in relationships, not because you're cold, but because you know what real love feels like. You don't stay silent in rooms where your voice matters, not because you're trying to dominate, but because you refuse to disappear. Every time you choose to keep your standards high, you reinforce a message to the world, and more importantly, to yourself: I know who I am. I know what I bring. And I will not compromise that to make you more comfortable. Because the moment you compromise your standard, you start to lose pieces of yourself. Small ones at first. You stay quiet when you should speak up. You smile when something cuts deep. You say, "It's fine," when it's anything but. And those moments, they add up. They start chipping away at your confidence, your clarity, your center. Until one day, you don't even recognize who you've become. You've shifted so many times to fit into spaces that weren't built for you. You forget how to take up space in your own life. But when you hold that line, when you stand in your standard like it's your armor, everything changes. You no longer chase people who don't see your value. You no longer beg to be treated right. You no longer hand discounts to people who couldn't afford the full version of you in the first place. Instead, you move with purpose. You speak with intention. You surround yourself with people who challenge you without demeaning you. And you start attracting relationships, opportunities, and environments that match your energy, not drain it. And no, it won't always be easy. There will be times when keeping your standard means walking away, times when you'll be misunderstood, underestimated, even disliked. But trust me, being alone in your peace is always better than being surrounded in your pain. Standing alone with your standard is better than standing in a crowd that requires you to betray it. Because here's the truth, people will only rise to the level you require, or they'll fall away, and both outcomes are wins. Why? Because they refine your circle, they refine you. Every time you choose not to lower your standard, you become more aligned with the life you're actually meant to live. Not the one others tried to convince you to settle for. So you stand tall. You speak with your chest. You don't fold when it's uncomfortable, and you don't waver when someone challenges your line. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be respected, and respect starts with you. You want to know the fastest way to teach people how to treat you? Show them how you treat yourself without compromise, without exception, without apology. Respect is never something you demand, it's something you become. People get that twisted. They think if they talk loud enough, threaten hard enough, posture big enough, they'll be respected. That's not respect. That's fear. That's control. That's insecurity disguised as power. But real respect, it doesn't come from volume. It comes from consistency, from how you carry yourself when no one's watching, from what you tolerate, and more importantly, what you don't. You become someone who is respected by building character that doesn't collapse when things get hard. By doing what you said you'd do, especially when it's inconvenient. By speaking up without blowing up. By walking away without burning the place down. That's how people start to look at you differently, not because you told them to, but because your actions left them no choice. And I'll tell you something, when you become that person, you won't have to chase respect. It'll walk into the room behind you. Not because you forced it, but because you earned it. Through self-discipline, through quiet strength, through not lowering yourself to meet people in their dysfunction, even when everything in you wants to fire back. And here's where it gets real. Some people won't ever respect you. Not because you're not worthy of it, but because they don't respect themselves. That's the part no one talks about. Disrespect often says more about them than it does about you. It's projection. It's insecurity. It's a lack of emotional intelligence they've never learned to manage. So when they mock you, interrupt you, try to undermine you, it's not about you. It's about the mirror you hold up when you walk in with integrity. You remind them of everything they're not, that you can stay calm under pressure, that you can be direct without being cruel, that you can walk through fire without throwing gasoline. And for some, that's threatening, because your composure makes their chaos look obvious. Your presence makes their immaturity harder to ignore. But even then, you don't shrink. Even then, you don't match their energy. You maintain your standard, your boundaries, your direction. And they'll feel it. Because you can't fake inner power. You can't fake alignment. You either have it, or you don't. And when you do, people notice. Even your silence carries weight. Even your absence commands attention. The goal isn't to get everyone to respect you. The goal is to live in a way that makes you respect yourself. So deeply, so fully, that nothing outside of you can rattle it. That's the real power. That's the kind that doesn't fade. That's the kind that doesn't need applause. It doesn't need validation. It just is. So when someone disrespects you, you don't lose your cool. You don't overact. You don't try to convince them of your value. You observe. You measure. You decide. And then you move accordingly, not emotionally, but intentionally. Because the person you've built yourself into is too valuable to be shaken by people who still don't know how to show up with respect. You don't demand it. You don't perform for it. You become it, and when you do, the people who need to feel your strength will. Whether they acknowledge it or not, they'll know you're not the one to play with, not because you said it, but because you live it. So in the end, it's simple. You don't fight for respect, you embody it. You don't argue to be seen, you don't beg to be valued. You show up in a way that makes it impossible to ignore your presence. And when someone doesn't respect you, you don't break, you don't bend, and you don't chase. You decide, you set the tone, you draw the line, and you walk with the kind of strength that doesn't need validation to stand tall. Because real power isn't loud, it's not reactive, it's controlled, grounded, calm. Respect isn't what you demand from others. It's what you refuse to lose in yourself. And once you become a person who lives by that truth, there is no disrespect in this world that can touch you.